what can you sew in 30 minutes? As examples, I can probably put in a zipper, set in a sleeve, maybe serge a few seams, or stitch a few quilt blocks. If you ask my guest that same question, she would state that in 30 minutes, she could sew a complete skirt, stitch a top, or create a pair of pants of doll clothes. Welcome back, Joan Hines, to our program on 30-minute doll clothes, where designer doll clothes are easy with these fast techniques. Welcome, Joan.
Thank you, Nancy. It's good to be back. Sewing doll clothes doesn't need to be so complicated at all. Let's start this show with a playtime ensemble. Playtime is imagination time. Your little girl and her doll will go on all sorts of adventures while you supply the wardrobe.
30-minute doll clothes, that's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing Designs and Class A Needles.
We'll take a close-up look of the playtime outfit that Joan designed, the crossover top with a little rickrack along the edges. Joan, these are easy to sew.
Absolutely. The top is sleeveless, and the top is also lined, which makes it a lot easier than the facings.
It is on such a small piece.
Right.
And then the little pants or shorts or leggings are all made in the same way.
Absolutely. You can lengthen them or shorten them to your liking, to whatever wardrobe needs you have. And the first thing you do is cut out 2 pants pieces, and they're interchangeable, the front and the back. And then the next step is to stitch the center front seam.
And you've used 1/4 of an inch seam allowances for the most part.
Right, on all the sewing I do, correct. And then the top and bottom edges are serged, and we're going to make a casing by flipping the top edge to the wrong side and stitching.
So you pressed under about 3/4 of an inch.
Right.
And then stitched a 1/2 of an inch from the edge, and we have some darker threads so you can see that. And then I'll find the bodkin and just narrow elastic. We're working small scale.
Right, right. And it's about 11 inches of elastic that you need. And if you like sometimes to have a longer piece to hang on to, you can put a dot wherever you need to stop.
And there we have a little dot. Okay, so that way you're not having such a small piece and losing the tail.
Yes, that's happened many times. So then you start threading it through. And when you get to the other side,
I'll get some pins ready. These are, as we mentioned throughout this series, they're cute outfits, but yet you don't have to spend hours creating the sewing.
Exactly.
So you'd stitch, or here we'll secure with a pin, and do the same on the other end, and find that little dot, and secure the seam.
Right.
So
casing's finished.
Everything's flat, and it would be hemmed at this point, and you can also apply the trim.
And the trim here is put on about 1 inch above, and you just cut lengths of rickrack and stitch them on. And then when both sides are done, you would fold the pieces together and stitch the center back seam, and that should hold the elastic.
This has that center back seam stitched, and you just reposition it and do the final stitching.
Right.
And
all
that
in
is
one.
The inseam from leg to leg, and you're not sewing it around in these little pieces.
Right, right.
You know, you have another weekender wardrobe, comfy weekender you call it, with shorts and a top, and I'll be showing you some knit top techniques in a little bit. But these shorts are made in the same manner.
Right, it's the same pattern piece, it's just cut shorter. And if you use flannel fabric, then they can be for sleeping.
Okay, make believe sleeping.
There you go.
This little top was made, as we mentioned, lined. And Joan, you know, if you would say to someone who is a beginner sewer, we're going to line this, they may think, I'm not going to make that. But this is easy to create and much easier than if you didn't have it lined.
Yes, yes. What it is 8 sections altogether. You would have 4 for each half. So you need 4 fronts and 4 backs.
Okay, this is the crossover section, and we
Right.
have the pairs stitched together at the shoulder, and then you meet right sides together.
Right, and then it's stitched around the front and the back, and then the center back edges, the
Armhole?
armhole, and then the bottom edges as well.
Probably the thing that takes the longest
Is turning it.
turning
yes.
it right side out. So, excuse me, I'm just going to use a turner to help with the process. Everything is turned through the shoulder seam.
Correct.
Now I'll just grab an end, and this helps me invert one over the other. Yeah. It's a funny looking notion, but it really makes turning through that narrow shoulder seam a lot easier. Now you'll need a little pressing.
Right, now you need to manipulate it a little bit, and then you'll get the flat pieces.
Okay.
And then you can start trimming it with rickrack.
We've done some pressing on our next pattern pieces, our next fabric pieces, and presto, we have 2 pieces. And you want to show how this all assembles.
Right, and you would cross it right over left, and you would have this done just like that.
Okay, I'll pin this for you. So the fronts are completed, and then
And then all you do is just turn the backs down to meet the side seams and stitch.
so through all of these layers,
Right.
quite a few, you're going to stitch. And as we look at the finished little top, Joan serged this edge, clean
Right.
finished it, so and you can see how really it's perfect for doll clothes. In the last episode of 30-Minute Doll Clothes, we showed this little dress, and it had a bolero jacket with it. And this bolero jacket is made with the same concept. This will be another pattern piece in the
Absolutely. Same way. And this one is much simpler because the pieces are much smaller, and there is just a shoulder seam and an underarm seam.
And you mentioned if you had used black thread, this could almost be reversible
Right,
for
just
doll
stitch
clothes.
the seam down.
And
Perfect.
probably could be reversible the way it is now. So with our playtime outfit and with our little bolero jacket, whichever way you'd like to wear it for the little girl in your life dressing her doll, these are cute, fast, and very durable.
A little girl can get her doll dressed for the first day of school in a coordinating red, white, and blue outfit. The vest, top, and skirt each take 30 minutes or less to stitch. The sewing is made simple with flat construction tips. Nancy will show you how to use your serger to simplify the sewing steps.
If you have a serger and you haven't used it, creating doll clothes is the perfect time to introduce yourself to the wonders of working with a serger, because when working with the doll clothes, it is very secure. It also clean finishes the edge, and as in this little jacket Joan made for the first day of school dress or the school days outfit, it's perfectly, almost can be serged completely. Plus the t-shirts. There are many different styles of t-shirts that you could create with puff sleeves, with short sleeves, long sleeves. It really doesn't matter. The sewing is all the same, and these are just some of the little outfits. A little bit of fabric, little time, and a lot of fun for a special little girl in your life. We've been referring through this series, these two episodes, of finishing the edges with a serger, and don't hesitate to do that because it will save a lot of time just by running it through with a 3 or 4 thread and clean finishing the edges. But you could also use it for construction, and I'm going to review how to use it when working with these little t-shirts. Knits and sergers are a perfect pair. You do have much smaller pattern pieces than you would, of course, when working with an adult size. And the neckline is what I'm going to work with first. Now, the neckline pattern piece for the ribbing is just a little bit over 1 inch. And you're going to sew or serge, doesn't matter, the ends together. So you sew the short ends together, turn right side out, and meet the cut edges. Now the neckline, you've serged the shoulder seam, or you stitched the shoulder seam of the front to the back, and turn under the edges at the back. Remember, all of our backs have those easy hook and loop tape closures. You align the edge finish of the neckline and the center back of the garment, and then meet quarter the area or half it, doesn't matter. You're going to have the neckline smaller than the neck. And then stretch one to meet the other. Now I'm using contrasting thread. Of course you would use thread that matches the fabric, but using this technique you just serge it all at once. And notice where I have my pins. I like to have my pins parallel to the cut edge rather than perpendicular, so you don't have any chance of serging over those pins. And just serge around the edge. Just keep on serging. And you're not having to sew it into a circle because you're sewing this all flat construction. And then as you end it, you can secure those edges, of course, but you just simply, when you have matching thread, you just bring it up to the fullest position. Now another option is to put the sleeves again in the flat construction. And these sleeves in this particular style are gathered or ruffled. And the edge has a little gathering. We just simply stitch through elastic, but you can use your serger to gather the top. And if you would like to tighten your needle tension, or my needle tensions are automatic, I'm going to tighten the differential feed so that the fabric is biting a little bit more than normal, and it will gather it. I'm going to start to sew with it without it being without the differential feed change, and then I'm just going to, as you can see, change it and it will gather it. I'm using a different color fabric, but you will soon see that this will gather it. Now you attach the sleeve to the shirt, meeting right sides together in the flat area. And I'm just going to pin this for you, but you can see you have this little gathered sleeve. You'd meet the center to the center, and you just serge it flat. And when you do that, the last step is to sew or serge, in this instance, the side seam. You can hem it first or you can hem it last, it really doesn't matter. But with your serger, your doll clothes can be made durable and quickly. There are 3 criteria for doll clothes in my book: cute, easy to make, and durable. This Jiffy jumper fits all the benchmarks with ease. Flat construction, fusing, and serging are components for success. When we look at a close-up of Joan's little jumper and knit top, Joan, I just showed how to make a knit top, and this one follows the same
plan,
process.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you made this jumper, you have the traditional hook and loop tape closure in the back, and you didn't do a lot of stitching on the decorative trim.
No, I did not. There's no reason with doll clothes why you can't just fuse on trims, and a 1/4 inch ribbon works perfectly well with paper-backed fusible web. Mm-hmm. So what I chose to do are 2 strips in the center here and a long one across the middle. So I would start placing these just a little bit off center. I'll peel this piece off.
And fusible web really, if it's pressed properly, will stay.
That's right, that's right. And even if it doesn't, if you feel insecure, you can stitch it if you want. But this went so much faster.
You have a little corduroy fabric that you're working with. It's real sweet.
And then you would just take the second piece here, make sure it's straight, and then you can go ahead and fuse that one on as well.
So that's the fusing part of making this outfit. Or if you want to, certainly feel free to stitch it. And then on the next sample, it shows some of the following steps.
Right, after the trim has been fused, then I just serged around. I did the shoulder seams first, and then I serged around the armholes and then the neckline. And then I've got one side here where I have turned that edge under. Just take your iron and press it under, and then just stitch around it under the sewing machine.
The serged seam, or the serged edge, really makes it easy to do the turning. You just turn around along that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So that's the facing that you would normally have in an adult size clothes. So you'd finish the neckline with that serge technique, the armhole, and then you finish it.
And then I would need to do the center back seam, and I would stitch it up to a point that's marked on the pattern piece. It's about right here. And then I press the seam allowances open and finish them separately.
So here we have the finished garment. Some of your garments have been open all the way to the hem. This one you decided to have a little closure. And because there's more room, you were able just to turn under with a serger and then top stitch the hem.
Right, right.
I can see why you can make a jumper in 30 minutes or less, even from cutting it out.
That's right. It goes very fast.
The knit shirt that I just showed you did not have long sleeves, so we have variations on that pattern.
Yes, the sleeves are just a little bit longer, and they're made the same way as the lighter pink one. And all you do is finish this edge.
Presto.
Same thing.
It's done. So 2 ensembles to be made in a very short period of time. Your little girl can dress her doll for sweet dreams after you make a simple nightshirt out of inches of fabric. We have a few helpful hints to assist you in streamlining the sewing process. So far we've worked with knit fabrics and a lot of cotton fabrics, but you may have some leftovers in your sewing stash that are a little slipperier.
Right, this one is a flannel back satin, so the flannel back does give it a little more stability.
Perfect for a nightshirt, but a little slippery. So we have some sewing hints that Joan has some sewing hints that she can pass along to you.
Okay, the first thing you do is cut out the fronts and the back pattern pieces, and then you stitch the shoulder seams here. Because this fabric does ravel, I do suggest finishing the edges, so I've serged around all the edges of the fronts and the back.
Or you could use a zigzag stitch. if you
Exactly.
didn't have that.
Exactly.
Now you have a curved hem.
Right. It seemed to resemble the nightgowns that girls wear, so I wanted to create that as well. And what I've started doing on this side is, after the serging, to take some paperback fusible web and place that along the edge here.
And you pressed that on already.
Yes, I press that, and then I'm peeling off the paper. Back to here.
We have a little extra, so I'm just going to break that off.
And what you need to notice from the pattern piece is there is a dot marked here because there will be a side seam.
Sure.
But then the hem is free. So starting at that point, you would turn it over and start pressing. And it takes a little manipulating here around the curve, but just go a little bit slower. And
But with the fusible web, it makes it a lot easier.
absolutely. So it will stay. And I would recommend stitching this one. Okay.
So you can continue shaping the curve, and that same fusible web technique, you may want to add, because of this is such a slippery fabric, a more secure binding around the neckline.
Right, and this is just simply pre-purchased bias tape.
The very narrow width.
Right.
And we added the paperback fusible web again to that area.
And we fused it to that spot in the middle of the bias tape, and then you just need to get your fabric lined up, and we'll turn it this direction here. And then once it's folded over the neckline, you would take this and fuse it. And then you would go around and stitch it.
So you can pre-pin it without using any
Yes.
pins.
Definitely.
One other little trim addition, you could turn under the armhole area, but Joan, you chose to use some extra little frills in that area.
Right. This is a pre-gathered trim, and it is stitched on the sleeves, and we've got one finished here. This one is simply about 4.5 inches of pre-gathered trim, and I just centered it along the armhole, and then I tapered the ends so that they extend beyond, so your unfinished edges will be trimmed off.
And then on this side, you turned it to the inside. You could either serge it or just stitch it, excuse me, and top stitch from the right side. The last
Right,
step
right.
is to make it a whole unit.
Exactly. So now you're going to fold it in half, and you've got your little markings, this one here, and you would just stitch those side seams just like that.
And finally, we always have a little of the hook and loop tape at the end to overlap and do the closure.
Yes.
When we were little girls, we didn't have that kind of easy closure. This is really great. So very quick technique. During our last Nancy's Corner segment, Enchanted Makeovers founder Terry Grail shared with us how volunteers transform often sterile shelters and rescue missions into very inviting surroundings, and then how we can help by creating pillowcases for the residents. Terry's back with us today to encourage us to sew for the kids who are staying in shelters, creating capes that give superpowers, the ability to tap their imaginations. Welcome back to Sewing with
Thank you, Nancy.
Terry, you started a great thing in what year was it? 2007. 2007, transforming women's and children's shelters, making them home-like.
Yes.
And giving them new pillowcases, quilts, bedding.
Handmade curtains, the whole thing.
Handmade is your mantra.
Yes.
And you had a great analogy, or not analogy, but explanation why you stress handmade.
Well, I just believe that with handmade, that creator that is making that pillowcase or the doll, that their love and their positive energy is going into that item, and that's part of the healing process for the women and children.
And many women and children in shelters have not had the opportunity of having something handmade and given to them.
No, they haven't.
And what a positive thing you're allowing.
Yes, and I think it's just full circle for everyone, for that giver too.
Yeah, I often say the gift is in the giving.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so. The gifts that we are talking about during this segment are toys, specifically, I can say that word, specifically dolls for the girls that are in the shelters, and
boys too. I mean, if
Sure.
there's a boy pattern doll, you know,
Sure.
that works too.
And it can be any doll.
Yes, anything that crafter, sewer,
Stitchist, whatever wants to make. This cute little one is, you pointed out, especially important for little girls because it doesn't have any button eyes.
yes, embroidered or painted faces, so it's
Sure.
safe.
Just makes you smile when you see this little person, doesn't it, or this
Yes.
little doll. And then we talked earlier in the opening about capes, and here's a photo of the capes that you have taken. And why did you start talking about capes and asking for capes?
Well, it actually was a segment I saw on Oprah about a gentleman that said how his mother said that no Superman is going to come and save you. And I knew that the children needed to have a cape that was an armor to say that you can do it, to give them positive outlook.
And capes, as you know, when my boys were little, they were often, you had capes for Halloween or dress up, and they're fun. Imagination, creativity.
Yes. The power of the imagination.
And if you're sometimes not in your home, you're in a home away from home, this definitely could give you some positive energy, some
Yes.
positive thinking.
He said, I can do it. I can get through this.
So you have cape instructions on the Enchanted Makeovers website.
Yep.
And not very difficult stitching.
No, not at all. And we like the Velcro just for safety reasons.
Sure fun. And then we have another one for a little girl. There we go, cute. And this one has a star on it. You know, it doesn't have to have
You don't have to place the S if you don't like.
You told a story of a little girl who was given a cape.
Yes. There was, we did a special event at the shelter, and it was in Detroit, and one of the girls received a cape, and she made sure she wore it to bed every night. And the pillowcase she didn't want to put on her pillow. She wanted it on the wall for a piece of artwork. So this tells you how important this is for the women and the children to receive handmade.
You know, probably a cape like this takes maybe 2 yards of fabric, if at most, and maybe an evening of sewing or less. You could certainly make one of these, very simple, but it looks fun. I mean, if I were little again, it would be great to wear one of these.
Yes. I mean, when the kids put them on, it's just amazing, the confidence and how good they feel about themselves.
What some fabric can do, what some stitching and some volunteering, it's an amazing thing.
Yes, it can transform lives.
Transform lives, just give encouragement through fabric. I think that's an important thing. So we encourage you as Sewing with Nancy viewers to make a cape. You'll find the website listed on our website. NancyZiemann.com has everything Sewing with Nancy. You can click on Nancy's Corner, and under the 25 series, you'll find the link to Enchanted Makeovers. Also at nancyzeman.com, you can watch current Sewing with Nancy programs online. You can re-watch this episode if you'd like, and then you can read my blog for updates on sewing, quilting, and embroidering. Well, this concludes our two-part series on 30-minute doll clothes. We thank our guest, Joan Hines, for being with us during this two-part series. Also, Terry, thank you for joining
Thank
us,
you,
telling
Nancy.
your encouraging stories, and we always thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Nancy and Joan Hines have written a fully illustrated book entitled 30-Minute Doll Clothes that includes all the information and patterns from this two-part series. It's $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the book, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2512. Order item number BK2512, 30-Minute Doll Clothes, credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzeman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zeman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs, and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Rowenta. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zeman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.